Morning and welcome. Welcome to everyone to the Climate Change and Nature Scrutiny panel. Yes, could you all introduce yourself? Sorry, I'm reading off this. If you could all introduce yourself for everyone in the office, thank you. Shall we start with, who should we start with? I'll see, Wendy.
Sorry.
You're on mute, Wendy.
No, I shouldn't be now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Oh, sorry. I was in shock being requested to speak immediately. I'm Wendy Fitzgerald, Ward Councillor for Pentagare.
Thank you. Chris?
I'm Chris Evans, Ward Councillor for Males.
Thank you. Bridget?
Morning, I'm Bridget Rowlands and I'm the Ward Councillor for Clydach.
Thank you. Jane, could you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jane Richmond. I'm the Climate Change Project Manager.
Thank you, Jane. Rachel, sorry.
Good morning all, I'm Rachel Lewis and I'm Directorate Project Manager for Police.
Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary Jones, Ward Member for Dunford and Calais.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Sarah Keaton, Councillor for West Cross. Do you want to go on around the table?
Liz Jordan, Scrutiny Officer.
Lord, Councillor David Hopkins, Joint Deputy Leader.
Morning, Paul Mellor, Natural Environment Manager.
And good morning. My name is Councillor Michael Locke and I represent Sketty.
Morning, Mark Wade, Director of Police.
Good morning, Councillor Andrew Lewis, Joint Deputy Leader.
Good morning, Councillor Cyril Anderson, Cabinet Member for Waste Management.
Thank you all. Should we start with the apologies?
We've received apologies from Cabinet Member Andrew Stevens and Jeff Bacon, Chair.
All right, thank you. Disclosures, any disclosures? No? Okay, thank you. Right. Prohibition of whip votes, declaration of party whips. Any comments? No. Minutes of previous meetings. If you want to, have you looked at the minutes? Do you want to go through them? How many pages are there? Have you gone through them? The first, second, third, fourth? Okay. Will anybody agree it's all right? Yeah. Thank you, Mary. And Chris, you second that? Right, thank you. Public question time. Have we received any questions, Liz? No, we haven't. Okay. Item 6, climate change update. Who's leading on this item?
All right. Chair, I think we've received questions in advance, which are really helpful. I'm happy if you want to go straight to questions.
That would be lovely, thank you. Chris, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thanks. So basically, this covers both items, climate change and nature recovery. So apart from the money, which is obviously going to be the top, what's the biggest stumbling block to achieving our goals? And is there anything else that we can do to help?
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you to Councillor Evans for the question. There are a number of challenges for us at the moment. So if we take 2030 as the first example, in terms of greening our fleet, we've got a sizable fleet of around 900 vehicles, as you know, at the moment. The challenge for us, if we were to, as an example, if we were to purchase all electric in terms of charging from the grid, is a difficult one. In terms of the infrastructure, but we're watching the technology very closely, and in terms of the cost of vehicles. So a refuse vehicle, which is a hydrogen vehicle, is around 3 times the cost of a normal diesel refuse vehicle. So it is about cost, but it's also about waiting for the industry and those economies of scale to actually make those vehicles affordable. So it's a difficult one. And as the committee know, we've been to the panel to discuss public EV charging infrastructure as well, and the challenges around people living in terraced properties. I think in terms of what the panel can do to help, your input and the debate and the discussion around the challenges that we have is really valuable to us. And the fact that you understand that we're trying to do everything we can within our power to go green as quickly as we can, but you know, it's not quite as straightforward and quite as simple as that. In terms of 2050, there's going to be that engagement, that wider engagement opportunity, but also that presents a challenge. So I think councillors, as community leaders yourselves, can help us spread that message to bring the public with us so that they can do everything within their power to try and reduce their energy usage, but also involve in, you know, the rollout of greener technologies and potential grants which could be accessible as well. You can help in terms of communicating that to your residents. So I think that's something that is going to have to be everybody's business, as opposed to just Cabinet's business. It's going to have to be something that everybody needs to embrace if we're going to achieve that target by 2050. I'll probably stop there, Chair, and we have Jane and Rachel with us as well if they wanted to add anything. And I know David's here in terms of nature recovery and biodiversity. So
thank you. Rachel, Jane, have you anything to add to that?
Yeah, I can come in and just sort of add to what Councillor Lewis was saying there in terms of asking for your support to engage with communities, but also perhaps with our educational establishments. If some of you are governors or have got strong links to the schools, etc., we'd be really keen for you to champion. We've got a really nice little education toolkit at the moment, just looking at energy efficiency within our public buildings, and offering to do audits within these buildings just to refresh people's memory to turn the thermostat down and check that the boiler's not coming on too early or staying on too late, etc. So I think Councillor Thomas mentioned yesterday in the community growing scrutiny workshop about maybe having a dedicated governor for biodiversity. Maybe that's something that we could ask the panel to consider, is encouraging climate change and energy efficiency as well as the biodiversity element of being some part of a governor's role. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that?
I have got my hand
Jane.
up to ask
Jane,
a question.
yeah. Hi, Jane. If you could, that's lovely. Thank you.
Okay, if I'm able to, just before Councillor Jones comes in, just to add for the 2050, we do an awful lot through partnership, and partnership obviously themselves have an awful lot of resource issues. So just sort of championing the work. Obviously, we need to be leading by example across the county, and it's just sort of encouraging those partners to have a greater input. Sometimes would be really useful. I think we're trying to have a more up-to-date and a greater presence online, and one of the things that would be really useful for me, particularly when tracking some of our work that we're doing across the webs and the things that we're doing across different social media, etc., is to use some of the hashtags that we've asked people to use. So really simply just using things like hashtag Swansea Project Zero, or hashtag Net Zero, or hashtag energy efficiency, or something like that, depending on what you're talking about, helps us to track where things are going along across the website. So and the activity around Swansea. So that would be really useful, and that's a really useful thing to do. In your communities, please just help people with their energy efficiency. We've got the energy awareness hub on the high street, so please signpost people to that. And we also have a small pot of money, the environmental partner framework, and so if there are small projects in your areas that you think would benefit from something like that, then please talk to me and we can have a look at that. But the work with the signatories group is really getting some momentum now after a year or so of that work. And we're about to go out into the community and advertise within this next week workshops in your communities where we need people of community leaders and others to come along and talk to us about the climate adaptation and mitigation that you see within your community. And we would really value councillor support for that, and to be there as part of those workshops. So they will be coming out. We'll send out that as soon as possible. So please, that would be really helpful too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. I'll definitely be in touch, or get in touch with me. Just that would be brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I've
No?
had my hand up
Yeah.
for quite a while.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
Right, could I just address one point? That's not the point I put my hand up for, actually. I totally agree with having a biodiversity champion or green champion or whatever you want to call it as a governor. In Hendreford, and we've had the Platinum Eco flag for quite a long time. In fact, I think we were the first school. But I can think of a really good governor, not myself, would probably be able to take that role on. And I think, yes, it's something to be encouraged. So yes, the only problem we're having in schools at the moment is the way the recycling now is being collected. And I think it's causing a few headaches, especially with collection and things, which I have actually sent an email about, not to any of you on the screen. And I haven't actually had a response yet. I'm waiting for the response. But the main question I want to ask, Councillor Lewis referred to electric charging points and vehicles, and since we had our meeting on Thursday, we've had some interesting developments in Calais. We asked them to hold off doing the work because the co-op's having a major refit, and lo and behold, they've come to do the electrical works. But when we were talking to the contractors, they said, oh, you've got to have the electric charging point now where the vehicle faces in. Now, I was quite surprised at this because obviously we've been fighting to have it alongside the pavement, and the terrace roads, terrace houses came back to mind. Apparently, new cars, the fitting is either in the front or on the driver's side, and there's new legislation. I don't know, I'm not into that field, I'm sorry, that you have to have it as close to the curb as possible. So I'm just wondering what effect that's going to have on us putting some of these charging points in. But also I noticed with the battery recycling as well, we do household batteries, which I've known for a long time, and I think it's an excellent scheme. But thinking of the size of the council, and if we are using batteries on our vehicles, and when they come to end of life, what are we doing with them? And that's really my one's sort of a comment and one's a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Andrea wants to answer.
Yeah, I'll leave the question around the battery recycling to Councillor Anderson. But in terms of the electric vehicle charging pillars being right on the edge of the pavement. There is an element of the fact that, yes, a lot of vehicles have their charging points in the front, on the bottom of their bonnet. Not all of them, but many of them. But also the trip hazard element. So the closer the pillar is to the car, the less danger and risk there is for trailing cables and pedestrians tripping over them. So there's a safety aspect to that as well, which is why that they're placed like that.
Sorry, can I come back? Apparently, I don't know, some kind of directive that all cars now will have to have their charging point. And I thought he told me in the front. I could be wrong, because we were talking obviously to one of the contractors that was still digging for the electrical works. But any new car has to have it in a certain place, and it's going to be standardised. Sorry, I don't know more than that. Maybe we can look at that to have an answer from whoever. And I'm not putting Councillor Lewis on the spot. It's just information that we were given on Thursday.
Andrew?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. I'm sure we could come back with perhaps a written response to the question just to confirm. I think it makes complete sense if that's what manufacturers are going to do, because it seems to be more logical. When I'm an EV owner myself, I never reverse up to a charging pillar. I've never done that before. I always drive nose in. So it makes sense for the charging point to be at the front of the car. For all those reasons. But I think what we would do as a panel and as a cabinet as well is we're watching this technology and the emerging technologies very closely. This is moving very fast now, because the manufacturers have actually cottoned on to the fact that green vehicles are the way to go. And I really do think that we're going to see great advancements with hydrogen vehicles as well, because actually hydrogen at some point may well overtake electric vehicles in terms of them being easier to refuel, because it's more similar to your petrol and diesel option, where they could turn up to a gas station. Well, you wouldn't call it a gas station then, would you? Probably a refueling station. And the hydrogen is able to transfer to the vehicle within minutes. So it's a far more convenient way to refuel the vehicle. So I suspect we'll see that moving forwards quite quickly. If you think about where we've come in the last 5 years, we've really moved forwards at pace. I remember starting this discussion in 2015 when we had electric pool cars. And I was described by someone, a colleague, as a lone voice shouting into an empty room about EV and nobody listening. But we've come a long way since then, I'm pleased to say. So I suspect in the next 9 years, we'll be talking about hydrogen vehicles, possibly a mix of the both, but technologies are emerging really quickly now. The other thing is, to go off piste a little bit, is it'll be interesting to see what the grid is doing as well. And, you know, we've got things like nuclear fusion, possible hydrogen in the grid as well. So we're trying to plan, but we have to be flexible and adapt accordingly, because things are changing so quickly.
Thank you. Cyril?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mary Jones. At present, as you can see in the report, HRWC only takes in household batteries. I have been informed that for the our strategy 2024, there's nothing in there regarding EVs. But I have to tell you that there's nothing being discussed nationwide for the disposal of EV batteries until we get any more information. That's as much as I can give you, Councillor.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything to add to that? Oh, Chris, can I bring you back in?
Yeah, sure.
Could I just come in on the first point? Yeah, because I didn't answer anything on particularly on the biodiversity bit. I think what we must realise it's not just our responsibility, and I think getting that message across to the Joe public them little things can make such a difference with biodiversity and nature enhancement. The things that we wouldn't realise can make such a difference. You talked earlier on of having a little meadow sort of area within your garden. That can do so much for biodiversity and habitat. And even when we are talking about new builds, I know I go into the controversial side of SUDs, but there are so many benefits when we are having new build of what we can do, and be mindful about what we can do to the environment to protect it at that point. It will take national, I know we do talk about national, it'll take policy changes as well with government, and the procurement chain, particularly with supply, is very, very tight at the moment. And I think, as Andrea said, and Councillor Lewis has said, I think technologies will grow, and I think things will be totally different going forward. But the small things can make such a difference. I know Paul, and particularly in our schools, work very closely with lots of our schools, and more that we need to do, because I can remember when I was Lord Mayor going around and talking to so many groups within schools of not just recycling, but one of the questions they asked me, well, thank you, Lord Mayor, for coming to us today. Could you tell me what type of car do you drive? And at that point, it was a big 3.5 litre diesel, but I'm pleased to say we have got hybrid now. So it just shows the awareness there is in schools at the moment. So I know, Paul, would you want to add anything to that?
Councillor Hopkins is saying, it's focusing on what we can do locally. There's a lot of issues we can't deal with internationally, and we're obviously waiting on the technological transition that Councillor Lewis has referred to that will make things more cost effective in future. But certainly where we can address perhaps the scepticism locally over climate and nature emergencies, and so we can introduce some sort of more bold actions and policies.
Thank you. Yes, I think we're going to have to rely to a certain extent, to a lot of an extent, on big business coming in and actually seeing it as being worthwhile to recycle batteries and start off businesses that will push this along as well, and it'll make economic sense for them to do it. So I think that's long-term positive. Well,
thanks, Chair. Just something I always bang on about, really, but obviously where we get the electricity to charge EVs is always something that I like to try and not remind people, that's the wrong word, but bring up regularly. I know the council's committed to buying green energy, but and it's a very good policy, but it is basically an accounts exercise. It's not necessarily guaranteeing that energy, the actual electrons that are used to charge our cars, come from renewable energy sources. So I think that we do need to bear in mind where we're charging these vehicles, where is that electricity coming from, and obviously it's extremely complicated to produce our own electricity and store it and charge it, but it's just something that I'll keep bringing up because it is something that we need to consider long term. Rachel touched on the biodiversity governor, which came up yesterday. It's something I've mentioned a few times. It would be good. I know we do a lot with our schools already, but I think it would maybe help a few others focus the mind, and every little helps. So if we could put that as a recommendation, it'd be great. Thank you.
right, thanks, Will. Chris, can I bring you back in again finally?
Yeah, no worries. Just to add as a point on that as well, I was told that there's a firm internationally that repurposes EV batteries for battery storage for solar panels from houses. So that might be something to look into. Question 2. So in the university for the last 6 months, I've been running something called the Green Impact Project, which was something that the National Union of Students started off. Basically what they do is they come into an organisation with a toolkit of 64 different actions And the idea is you set in every single department or section, you set up a team, and these teams then compete sort of against each other to try to make as many sort of green actions and green savings as possible. So I've included a link in with the questions, and I was just wondering if the council would consider doing something similar to this, where every single section then is looking at their energy uses, their water usage, and ways that they can sort of save energy and save money. But it's not kind of in a preacher, you must do this kind of way. It's actually the departments themselves that are actually looking and changing the way they think to make the savings.
Thanks, Chris. I think Andrea's jumping on her seat here to answer you here.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Evans for the question. The short answer is yes. We are interested in looking at this. We're currently focused on the toolkit that we mentioned in I think Rachel referred to in her response to your first question. But we do work very closely with the universities in terms of the climate signatories group. So, you know, it's important, I think, that as public sector partners that we share good practice. And this is a really good example of that. The other thing that we're doing as well is using our internal comms team to share good practice as well. And I know Jane and Rachel have worked really hard on the council website in terms of, you know, encouraging the public to sign up to tackling climate change with their, as David said, you know, every small action counts as well as every big action. So yes, it's a really good project. We look forward to looking into it in more detail to see how we could potentially roll that out ourselves. So appreciate you raising it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Chris, it's me now. Okay, thank you, Chris. That was really good questions. Right, first one was recycling, because we did discuss the new containers. We haven't actually physically had a container to especially the glass ones, to pass around for the climate scrutiny. I think the usual complaint which you've had concerns about before is the weight of them when they're full. And if you need a lot of them, and if you live in a flat or you've got disabilities, how do you get them to the, you know, the pavement if it's difficult and heavy? And we were just wondering if there would be a possibility of a separate container for people with these problems, perhaps a canvas bag or a recycled plastic bag. Just
Sorry, question there. Are you saying about the glass and can receptacles? There's no other further plan on the design, but I'm sure we can work with residents that are disabled, i.e. they can go on the assist as it already happens at the moment. So we will keep an eye on that for you.
Oh, thank you. I know it was something that had been brought up before that you'd say, but thank you. Okay, the other thing on back to biodiversity is No Mow May. We'd really like it to be able to be rolled out everywhere. Oh,
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to cut across you. I'm just conscious that this question sits with Councillor Andrew Stevens. So if you're in agreement, perhaps it could be deferred to the next meeting for Councillor Stevens to attend and respond.
So that would be 3 questions.
Are you Weed Killen?
No, that is under.
Yeah, that one as well. The next
Yeah.
question and probably the next question. Yes, Chair.
Can I just say, without being disrespectful for the Deputy Leader, No More May was done last year, but what the department found after when we went to restart the mow, it done so much damage because the grass had grown extremely long. It done so much damage to our equipment that we decided not to do it in a full scale as last year. We have picked certain areas where we're going to leave the No More May. But what we are going to be doing this year, we've got new vehicles. Instead of just leaving it, mowing it and leaving it, we got the new ride on cut and collect. So that's what we are doing this year with the No Mow May.
That's great. Will you be getting more cut and collect lawnmowers then when these others, I don't know, industrial lawnmowers give up the ghost? You'll be getting ones that will be able to.
Yes, at the moment it's in procurement at the moment, Chair. But we have managed to arrange funding for new vehicle, new plant, which will be up to the job.
Excellent news. Thank you. I'll leave the other questions then about the weed killers. And Ray Gardens.
To be honest, I think we've had many debatable weed killers, to be honest with you, and I think it's been an ongoing thing. And I think we're in a reasonable position at this particular time where we have had ward members who have had the opportunity to opt out wherever possible, wherever they can. So I think and I think there is a commitment from the council to look at alternatives wherever we can. And I think we've looked at this many, many times over many, many years. So personally, I think we are still looking for different technologies and different things, but it's an ongoing process, and I think there is a lot more to do. But I don't think there's been much progress since the last time we had a scrutiny meeting on it. I know it's been I wouldn't say done, but it's an ongoing issue that we are committed to look at, and we are looking for alternatives as well.
I mean, we wouldn't keep bringing it up if it wasn't so important. And we are losing a lot of insects every year that we are spraying. So we really do need to look at it and find alternatives, or even say the weeds will have to be coped with, because if we are serious about biodiversity, we've really got to stop spraying. Thank you. Okay. Where are we? Right. Nature biodiversity update. One second. Sorry. It's just. There we go. Sorry. Who is leading on this item?
Nature biodiversity?
Yeah. There we go. I thought it might.
Paul is related to lead on. Sorry, Paul is on me to lead on this one this morning.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Chair. Yeah, so I'll just sort of skim through the report. I think Scrutiny have been looking into nature recovery since we had a major inquiry back in 2018. We've brought a number of progress reports since then. There are a number of good recommendations coming out of that inquiry, which have been implemented over intervening years, including incorporation of climate and nature recovery as a corporate objective. We've got Climate Nature Recovery Programme Board steering group overseeing our work on that. It's resulted in additional resources, additional ecologists, biodiversity officer, local nature recovery, local nature partnership officer as well. And that's then helped take forward additional work, which including working with our local partners to produce the local nature recovery action plan and the council's section 6 action plan, then which it seeks to deliver on the council's element of the local nature recovery action plan. So there's been very good progress made in recent years. The report shows how the progress has been made against the corporate objectives, policy commitments, etc. And it's very much the focus here is the nature conservation team, the natural environment section, and it's very much now a business as usual for the team. So as you say, the report is an appendix highlights the progress that's been made over the past year. A lot of that then is ongoing, from tree planting to management of sites. There's a lot of work being done in the background in terms of evidence gathering, so we're more prepared for tackling the targets for 30 by 30. So the suggestion is, I'm supposed to make a recommendation here, but the nature conservation team have been scrutinised a lot. It's perhaps where they're going forward. We look at the picture across the council, and probably the best way of doing that now we've got the local nature recovery action plan and section 6 action plan in place. They're monitored annually, and we can bring those reports back to panel in future and look at progress across the county with partners, and also what we're doing as a council.
Thank you, Paul. Could I ask a question? I'm just checking nobody else has got their hand up. How do you know if it's working? How do you judge, and do you go back to a set area and see if there's more insect life? I know it sounds like a really naive question, but how do you know?
I mean, that's an area that is being looked at the moment, because we've got to try to manage that, to monitor net biodiversity gain, whether it's on the back of planning applications or generally as part of our work. And there's no agreed way of doing that at the moment, in terms of that steer would need to come from Welsh Government or above and be done in a consistent way across authorities to monitor, and it can only happen over time as well. So yeah, we've got an idea at a higher level in terms of what the extent of green infrastructure, the numbers of trees, etc., but not drilled down to the detail of what species and habitats are on the ground. There is an ongoing review of the sites of interest for nature conservation, but again, that's more habitat type than actual what species of creatures, etc., are within those areas.
Thank you, Paul. Any other? Oh, I can see Chris. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, as the LDP consultation is underway, are we looking to beef up biodiversity protections as part of the LDP and perhaps strengthen enforcement?
Yeah, enforcement is always a problem. As we know, we are looking to see what we can do there, obviously. But yes, we are out at the moment looking at the LDP, got a working group on it. And at this moment, I know Tom Evans is busily working on that, and there will be heavily tied in that as a green infrastructure and a biodiversity as well. It's linked in. I know Paul is very active within the LDP at this particular time, while we are working up the delivery platform for that. So the short answer is yes.
Thank you. Right, Mary, do you want to come in?
Oh, thank you. I thought Will was before me.
Sorry, Will. I can't. There we. Right. Okay.
Don't worry, no problem. So one of the other things we've been talking about for a number of years is biodiversity with regards to like planning applications. I was very pleased to see it on the last report that went to council last month. It was one of the recommendations. I was just wondering, the cabinet member, if there's been any progress on that. I mean, obviously, we don't want to. We want to use a carrot, not a stick kind of approach, in my opinion. But if every planning application just had a simple question of how is this application going to improve or enhance biodiversity with regards to the application, I think again it would make people think about how they can do that. I mean, even if it's an extension and you could put a little bird box on the side or a little pond at the bottom of the garden, or with regards to suds things. So I'm just wondering if there'd been any progress on that and if it was being considered. And the second thing, I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail on the sort of biodiversity governor. I think, again, carrot, not a stick. And also we want to try and make it very simple for the schools, maybe just a one-page report that they have to just submit every year, because we don't want to make it too arduous, because obviously some schools struggle to get governors, let alone people to want to put themselves forward for biodiversity governors. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, just on the planning enforcement, sorry, and that, yes, there is value added to all planning applications. We are working towards that this particular time. Quite recently, the panel have turned down a plan application because there was no, the panel, not the committee, that have turned down an application because there was no value added to biodiversity. So yes, that has been implemented and we are working towards. And I totally support the biodiversity champion within schools. I think that is spot on. It's not just schools, not just pupils, but governors. But you are right, it is difficult to get governors, full stop. But I think it is important that we do try to push that wherever we can, personally.
Could I just come back on that, Chair, if you don't mind? Is that okay? So with regards to the planning, obviously you said that one application had been turned down, but is it going to form part of every planning application, or was this just a unique case? Is it going to form part of the planning process for everything, or just certain size scales, or?
Yeah, all applications are looked at. If they can put value added or back boxes or smaller boxes, then we will put whatever we can. There is some type of value added. But I will probably give a further report on that at a later time as well.
Okay.
Thank you. We do now, we're planning as well. SUDS has to be added. So that is something, well, that's always goes in from now on with planning. Thank you for your question. Right, Mary.
Thank you. It's just struck me, and I am actually a member of the Friends of Dunvant Park, but I know that we do quite a lot in the park. We did the City Nature Challenge, I think, in April, and we do orchid counting and things like that. And we actually have an app, and don't ask me, I can't remember the name of it, and I haven't got it in front of me, where when we count, we can add them to a total and they are then sent away. So it just struck me with No Mow May when Paul said that they're not able to always see the effect. That if you could ask, there's an awful lot of friends groups across Swansea in parks, and maybe they can help, like sort of look at before the no mow and look after, because they're, you know, mainly in the parks practically every Saturday or whichever weekday they, you know, they want to go. And it might be an idea for us to try and get something a little more structured, that all parks sort of decide that, you know, with the help of the Parks Department or the other department, you know, biodiversity, that we can look to see at the beginning of, or the end of April, and then at the end of May, the beginning of June, if we can identify newer species or insects and things like that. It doesn't have to be onerous. We could just start off small. It's just an idea.
Thank you, Mary. I love that idea. I think that would be something project with the schools as well, if they could get involved with their new biodiversity governance. Thank you. Wendy?
Thank you, Chair. It's really just a comment. The LDP has come up, and surely it is reasonable to say that if a greenfield site is used for housing, say, then it is going to have significant impacts on biodiversity. And, you know, to my way of thinking, that is never going to be compensated for by what can be added to the housing development. I mean, if you think of a greenfield site, think of hedgerows, trees, and so much of this goes. And I can give you a splendid example. When it was the UGP, there was a site put forward in my ward. There was a biodiversity type report in those days. And one of the things that was commented on were badgers. And the application at that time was for 250 houses. And the comments were, well, the badgers will be able to relocate away from where the development was. When it became a site for 850 houses, was there any mention of badgers? No, no mention of any rare species. And, you know, this is my concern. If we are building on greenfield sites, we are doing irreparable damage to the environment. I don't know if anyone else shares that view, but I would be interested to know. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Wendy. Good point. I would say that a lot of there's greenfield sites and there's greenfield sites. I know when we built our skate park, they had a look at it, and although it was, some people said, well, it's green in places, there wasn't much there. We've added rain gardens, we've added trees. You can enrich a site, but yeah, I take your point. Thank you. To add anything? No? Oh, is that a legacy hand there, Wendy? Okay. Where are we? Right, panel review. Yes. Is this the one? Sorry, Echo. Oh, are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Sorry. No? No? Okay, thank you. Item 8, panel review of the year. Sounds very good. Sounds like we should get an award or something. We have the questions here. What went well? What do you think went well? No, can't hear a thing.
Okay. Just to let you know, cabinet members and officers can leave now if they'd like, because we're going to do a panel review. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, start again. What do you think went well? Or perhaps we should do them all at the same time. What do you think went well? What, if anything, could be done better? Has the panel work focused on the right things? What have we learned that will help us to improve and develop future scrutiny? Let's throw them all out there and see what we get. Mary? You got your hand up.
Yeah, I think everything went well, actually, to be quite fair. I think we've looked in depth at a lot of the topics, and we have made some very good recommendations. And I think even today, you know, getting the schools and things, the friends groups involved. But I was going to say, I think one of the best scrutinies from my perspective, and probably yours, was flooding. Because with the climate change, we are having a lot of problems in our wards, and without people taking more direct action, then I don't think, you know, we did highlight those issues, and hopefully that the departments took on board what we said, especially when they are clearing the gullies out, be it in the autumn or whatever it is. I think we made a major impact there, and also, unfortunately to say, the SUDS. Maybe we can highlight the SUDS a bit more and the attenuation ponds.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. SUDS particularly, we really need to do more. Hang on. Yeah, Mike?
Yes, on flooding, I find residents are very concerned about flooding in the winter or until recently. When it comes to the summer, they think, oh, maybe the problem will actually go away, which of course it's not going to. So I think we need to keep on driving this, basically.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think we have these questions, but you saw it a bit with David when I was asking about the spraying and stopping the toxins. We have to constantly keep revisiting and saying, What have you done now? What can you do more? And to keep at it. That's my feelings. Any other questions? Any other suggestions, I should say?
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in? Can I come in? Sorry,
yeah.
Couldn't find my. Thanks. Yeah, the planning stuff, I think, always seems to get not batted off but nothing really ever seems to change on that. So, I mean, for a couple of years, I've just been asking to add a question to the planning applications, and what it is and how the process works with planning. We have been over it before, but I don't think we've really made any progress, in my opinion. Maybe a little bit, but that's something I think is where the council could probably add the most or make the most change, outside of its corporate structure in the area. So that's probably where we should focus from a biodiversity angle. I mean, sorry, that's probably where we should spend a bit of time looking at in future.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. On planning, sometimes it feels like you're in a different world. And I'm the weirdo usually asking the questions about drainage and stuff. And yeah, it does feel, apart from that, it does feel quite lonely. Chris, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think in some departments, certain work practices are probably ingrained because they want to do things the way they've done it for the last 20, 30 years. And I think the spraying and planning are both sort of good examples of those things. It's a kind of almost a resistance to change. The other thing is it's good that we get NRW in every now and again, because I've made wildlife crime complaints to NRW and didn't even get a response previously. So it's nice to have them in the room, so then you can sort of ask them directly. So I would definitely leave that one in as well.
Thank you. Wendy, do you have anything to add?
Yes, funny enough, I was just thinking of knotweed, because knotweed is a major problem in some areas, and unless it is sprayed with something quite vicious, it will continue to grow. So I think we need to, consider how we're going to deal with knotweed if we reduce spraying, because knotweed can pop up along a pavement. I have the problem in my ward, and I'm sure other people do as well. And if it isn't, removed, killed, it will spread like the proverbial wildfire. So I do think we need to keep in mind that there are problem plants that we need to get a grip on. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Wendy. No, I agree. But I think sometimes they use that as an excuse to just more randomly spray. And I don't think it does do any good. There's more and more reports to show it doesn't really help as much as they think it does. Yeah, Chris?
Yeah, it's just say with knotweed can be injected directly, and it's probably the best way to get it. It's labor intensive, but it can be injected, and that's usually the best way to get rid of it. But also know there's massive problems up in Clydach with Himalayan balsam, and the other one is rhododendron. And now we've got rhododendrons sort of on sale in pretty much every sort of garden centre in Swansea, and yet it's an invasive species, and it's spreading like wildfire around certain areas of Gower.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's ridiculous. You still see it in gardening magazines, see themselves as quite up on these things, and they'll go, oh yes, and there's this lovely, and you think, why are you planting those? Wendy, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I totally agree that Himalayan balsam is another problem, and there are areas where that seems to grow profusely. As far as rhododendrons are concerned, my understanding is it's Rhododendron ponticum that is the weed, the one to get rid of, whereas some specimen rhododendrons, are still desirable. So I'm a half and a half on that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks. I've banned them all from my garden on the grounds they're not good for the bees. The bees go to them and it doesn't even create good honey. So I'm boycotting rhododendrons. Mary, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just a comment, unfortunately, it's in Chris's ward. We promote Klein Gardens. With in bloom with its rhododendrons and azaleas, and unfortunately without them in Klein Gardens there wouldn't be very much to look at. So it is something actually to consider. More serious point, that was a bit light-hearted. A more serious point is to what do we do moving forward about them, not actually killing them all off, but can we manage them better, and what can we put instead in Klein that would make it the attractive gardens that it is.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I'd say it's sinister. You look underneath all the rhododendrons, there's nothing grows there. It's just dust. You can't, it's not even got an under, nothing grows there. It's so poisonous, as it were. So I don't know. I see it as like a maximum security jail for them. So, they keep them there. They don't get out. It's fine.
We'll have to get a boot wash for the way out.
Yeah. Yeah. Wendy, did you want to come back in?
No, sorry. I seem to have problems putting my hand down.
Anyone else wants to add anything? Well? No? Mike, you're okay. Okay. Shall we wind this up then? Let's see. The next meeting, I've got it here, is the 16th of July, Tuesday at 10 a.m. We'll have the draft work programme for 2024 to 25 will be brought for our agreement then. So that should be interesting. Thank you all for attending and putting up with me not being able to hear out of my left ear, which has been fun, this meeting. It really has. Thank you so much. Bye.
See ya.